Hello everybody, how is it going? Now in this video, I'm going to be giving you 3 reasons as to why people find compulsions so difficult to stop, why they find them so hard to cut. So reason number 1 is that people don't tend to see the long-term damage. And what I mean by that is when you perform a compulsion, you are so set on either getting certainty, getting relief, getting rid of a feeling to achieve some kind of comfort. You want to avoid because you're scared of getting triggered even further, or you're scared of getting triggered at all. And because that feels so terrifyingly real, and because the suffering is so intense with the emotions, the symptoms, the anxiety, the panic, the shame, the guilt, the depression, all these emotions that we feel, you can often just see the short term, and that's just, oh, if I do this compulsion, so if I seek reassurance, if I mentally reassure myself, if I engage with confession, if I avoid, if I Google, if I use ChatGPT, if I mentally solve or mentally replay, whatever the compulsion may be, you just tend to look at the short-term outcome. And quite often that is some kind of relief or some kind of illusion of certainty or some kind of elimination of a feeling. But the problem is that every time you perform a compulsion, you are reinforcing the OCD cycle and you're making it harder for yourself in the long run. And you're actually causing more suffering and more struggle in the long term. And because a compulsion isn't actually like a substance, so for example, like a drug addict, as an example, they might be taking a drug, so they can physically see the drug they are taking and put it into their body, and then noticeably seeing the effects on their body and in their health and so on. But with OCD and compulsions, people do not tend to see the damage it does until they look back and reflect and think, wow, I'm still stuck in the mental imprisonment of OCD. I'm still trapped in the OCD cycle. OCD is still calling the shots. And this can happen after 5, 10, 15, 20 years of reflection, looking back and thinking, wow, those compulsions didn't get me anywhere. But when we're caught up in that cycle, when we're triggered, when we're heightened with emotion, we're doing anything just to get relief. Get me relief, get me relief, get me relief. We act as if we are addicts chasing that drug. Your drug is reassurance. Your drug is the compulsion. OCD is fueled by compulsions. It's called obsessive compulsive disorder. The compulsions are a key mechanism of OCD. This is why it's very important to try and cut them. But you've also got to look at why you aren't cutting them, and that is because you are not seeing the long-term effects, the long-lasting damage that it can have in regards to your recovery journey and overall your mental health. Okay, and it will take a lot of hard work to cut these compulsions, but please don't trade the long-term comfort, the long-term freedom, the long-term sustainable emotional health just for short-term relief. But the short-term is then trading the long-term. If you trade long-term freedom for short-term comfort, that is not a wise thing to do, because it means it's just going to be a lifetime performing compulsions, and you'll be taking compulsions to the grave. And I needed these eye-openers. I needed these wake-up calls. I needed these slaps to the faces many times where I had to wake up and smell the coffee and think, Sam, these compulsions are keeping you stuck. Right, these compulsions are keeping you locked in. Realize the long-term effect. If they worked, you wouldn't be watching this video. If your reassurance worked, if your over-explanation worked to get relief, if all your avoidance worked, you would not be here sat down watching this video of me talking, because you'd have got relief. But OCD has conned you, it's scammed you, it's mocked you once again. It hasn't delivered on its side of the bargain, and it's never delivered on its promise, and it never will. Okay, so try and acknowledge and realize and ultimately recognize the long-term damage of performing short-term compulsions. It's never a good trade-off. It never delivers on the desired outcome. Reason number 2, people do not tend to address the beliefs behind the compulsions that are being performed. Okay, people just think, oh, I'm doing compulsions. I want to stop my compulsions. How do I do it? Well, you've got to look at why you're performing them. Why are you seeking reassurance? Why are you confessing? Why are you avoiding? Why are you trying to solve? Well, that's the irrational belief systems, all the demands that you're placing. A lot of it is the low frustration tolerance. I can't stand feeling this uncomfortable, therefore I need relief. I must get relief. I must do whatever it takes to get rid of this feeling, to eradicate this anxiety, to erase this panic. Therefore, I need to avoid, I need to seek reassurance, I need to do something to give me some kind of relief. Instant gratification, all those unhealthy habits, all those escape mechanisms that give you just short-term gratification but never long-term reward, because it just keeps you locked in that cycle. Okay, so you've got to take a look at the beliefs behind it, address them, take a look at all the demands you're holding. You know, for example, let's say you have a belief that I must have certainty on this thing in the past. Well, that belief, I'm afraid, is going to drive the mental solving, the mental analysis, the mental replaying, the mental rumination, all the engagement that you have with the rumination. That's driving all that belief. If you then have a belief that if I've done wrong in the past, then I'm a terrible person, or if I don't have certainty, then my life is ruined, well, I'm afraid those beliefs are going to drive those compulsions. They're going to drive the solving, the analysis paralysis, we call it. They're going to drive all the reassurance seeking. You know, if you're confessing, it's because I need to get this off my chest. I can't stand the discomfort. And if I've done this thing that's bad in the past, I'm an awful person, deserves to be punished. You know, all these kind of beliefs are fueling those compulsions. Okay, there's so many beliefs driving you, not just waking up, just going, oh, today I'm going to perform compulsions. For no reason, for the sake of it, for the shits and giggles, for a laugh. No, you're doing them because of the irrational beliefs hiding behind them. So very critical you take a look at them, and we can certainly help you take a look at them in calls. But you need to be addressing them yourself and becoming streetwise to how OCD is operating and how these compulsions are working, the ins and outs of them, and identifying them, but seeing why you feel so compelled to perform them, why it feels so urgent, why it feels so life or death. Okay, it's very critical you address the beliefs. Reason number 3, probably the biggest one that I struggled with, and it was that people tend to not acquire the self-discipline needed to cut compulsions long-lastingly, sustainably. Okay, we can all cut compulsions today whilst the novelty's there. Yeah, I'll come off a call with Sam. I'm going to cut all my compulsions. Woohoo, let's do it. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. And then you get triggered. This one feels different. This one feels real. This one feels like you've crossed the line. Oh my God, there's no coming back from this one. Life's never going to be the same again. This one's going to haunt me forever. Compulsion, 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 avoid, avoid, reassurance, confess. Yeah, that's not going to get you very far. If as soon as the going gets tough, you start trying to replay, you start trying to solve, you desperately search for that relief, you start digging in your mind for that certainty, OCD is going to have a field day. OCD is going to remain the controller of your life. OCD is going to call the shots to your life. It's going to remain firmly in the driving seat. So we've got to be looking to build self-discipline, acquiring it, number 1, maintaining it, and applying it again and again and again. Okay, stop taking the easy way out. Stop taking the comfortable way. Stop choosing the safe option. Don't just look for the quick fix. Don't look for the sudden miracle. Don't just look for the quick comfort. It won't work. You're being scammed by OCD. It won't get you anywhere. You want to be building the tolerance to frustration, discomfort, and a great way of doing that is remaining disciplined. Okay, discipline is so critical for life. Okay, all of life's adversities, injustices, hardships, hassles, we want to have a high discipline, that we follow through with actions, we follow through with goals, objectives, ambitions, aspirations, that we try to achieve what we set out to do. So for example, let's say you set a career goal, you don't just give up on the first hurdle. You don't just go, oh no, this is difficult, I'm going to give up. Let's say you're trying to actively date because you haven't been in a relationship for so long, and you go on one date, it doesn't go well, you completely panic, you go back into your shell and you think, no, I can't do this anymore, this isn't going to work for me. And then you just go back into the avoidance, you go back into the compulsions. And to cut compulsions, it's going to require major discipline, because you've got every ounce of your body just telling you to opt for the short-term comfort. Oh no, just get relief. This one's different. This one's the exception. This one, you've got your brain justifying the compulsion. You've got OCD telling you that, yeah, the compulsion is justified, is excused on this occasion because you need relief on this one. Plus, many compulsions are hidden. They're very subtle. Sometimes you don't even realize they're compulsion until after you perform them. And you think, oh shit, I've just performed the compulsion and now I've got relief, and then it didn't get me anywhere. Sometimes when I was at rock bottom, even when I was performing compulsions, I wasn't even getting relief. It was like taking a drug and not even getting the hit. And I knew I was in trouble. I knew I was at a low place and the only way was up. But back to the point I'm making, acquiring self-discipline. Cutting compulsions when it matters, when it counts. Not only when you feel like it, not only when you've got a chilled out weekend and you think, oh, it's not going to ruin anything, the anxiety. Nope. Even on the big day, even on the big occasions, even when you feel anxious and triggered and already on edge, it's having that discipline to not perform them, even when it feels so uncomfortable and it feels like your life is on the line. It's hard, it's bloody difficult, but you can do it. And remember, if you perform compulsions, you're fueling the OCD cycle, you're reinforcing the OCD. Okay, it's not easy at all. It's very difficult. Compulsions is probably one of the hardest thing I've done in my life, truly. You know, it was like overcoming an addiction, but then nobody else around you knew that you had an addiction. Nobody else knew you were an addict. And knowing that you were so desperately just resisting that need for reassurance, you're so desperately, trying not to avoid all the compulsions you're trying to cut. Everyone around you, including loved ones and family, are not even aware what you're going through in your mind, but it's important that you keep moving forward and you're recovering for yourself. You're getting better for yourself, okay? You do not want to lose yourself. You want to keep moving forward. You're recovering for you, okay? And you've got to try and remain that discipline. You really can get better. Compulsions are the biggest time stealers. You don't want to be looking, or you don't want to be on your deathbed thinking, oh, I'm so glad I did all those compulsions. You will not be thinking that. You'll be reminiscing about memories and experiences. You'll be looking back on life, talking to loved ones all around you, I'm sure, and you'll be thinking about what you did, not the compulsions that you were doing, not the avoidance behaviours. You will not be thinking like that. And on your gravestone, you do not want X and X name, died on X and X date, spent their whole life performing compulsions. You don't want to have that on your gravestone, okay? And that's what will happen if we don't attempt to cut them. It won't happen overnight. Trust me, it's not an easy fix. I don't expect you to cut compulsions overnight and then tomorrow we got on with it and then perform a compulsion again. No, that's not realistic. That's totally delusional. That's not the case at all. It's going to take a while. It's going to take a little time because there's so many subtleties and nuances to compulsion cutting. But you really, really can, okay? And we want to be trying to acquire the self-discipline, maintaining it, and knowing that if you want to get your life back, if you want to live life on your terms, that will involve cutting compulsions as if your life depends on them. Because ultimately, it does. And what will tend to happen is that the more you perform compulsions, when you start getting better later on, you'll look back and think, fuck, I've just spent X amount of years performing compulsions. Wow. And you'll look back as you start getting better. But don't wait for that day. Try and make that day happen as soon as we can. Put in the work to get better, and you look back and think, wow, I spent a lot of time performing compulsions, but no more. But not playing that game anymore. I'm now living life on my terms, and I'll do whatever it takes to get better. If that means cutting compulsions in the face of adversity, so be it. It takes bravery. It takes significant courage. Takes a lot of balls to cut compulsions. It really, really does. It takes a lot of heart to cut compulsions, but you really can do it. And those three things, look at the long-term damage. See why you're still stuck. Are you still performing compulsions? See how you're getting scammed for short-term relief. Long-term, you'll stay stuck performing compulsions. Address the beliefs behind why the compulsions are being performed, why it feels so intense, why you feel so compelled to perform such compulsions. Take a look at that, dissect them, dismantle the beliefs, disarm the OCD cycle by addressing those beliefs, and look to acquire self-discipline. Absolutely critical when it comes to cutting compulsions. If you need help with that, please email phil@ocdrecovery.com or WhatsApp the number in the description of this video. My name is Sam. I can help you breaking down those compulsions and cutting them, as can the rest of the team. You have Nick, Momin, Gemma, Elliot, and Rob that can help you break this down and ultimately recover from OCD via cutting compulsions and everything else in between that we can advise you with. There is hope, guys. You don't have to spend a lifetime doing compulsions. You don't have to take compulsions to the grave. You really can get better. And ultimately, you really can cut compulsions.